Hello and welcome to One Cool Thing, PC Mag's daily show on Facebook, where we show you one cool thing which we are testing out in the PC Mag labs. I'm Sasha Segan, this is Tom Brandt. We have Social Pete over taking your comments, questions, concerns, and please engage with us on anything we want to talk to you. But of course, we also have one cool thing here today. And when Tom brought this out, my first reaction was, Tom, why are you putting a 2006 era hard drive on this show? Okay, because I could swear I had a hard drive in this enclosure 11 years ago. What is going on?
Right, this thing is bigger than many small computers now. So what we have here is the Akitio Thunder3 PCIe SSD.
Wait!
Yeah.
Record scratch.
Yeah.
Okay, SSDs are tiny.
Right. Well, okay, so you might think that, but this is no ordinary SSD inside this thing. This is actually an Intel 750 series, which if you were around two or 3 years ago and you were into SSDs for some weird reason, would ring a bell as one of the first ones that supports the NVMe interface, which is a huge speed increase over your average SSD in a $500 laptop.
But even compared to say the small portable 960 SSDs, which we've started to see from all the major memory firms, this is still faster than that.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll show it to you right here. This is the actual drive inside of it. Intel actually makes this drive in that form factor that you were just talking about, the smaller ones that can fit in a normal hard drive slot. But for whatever reason, Akitio has decided to go with the larger regular PCIe version of this. Now, they put it in this giant thing.
I was going to say, that this looks like basically a shuttle PC case.
Yeah.
So could I put like a CPU and a video card in here and just call it my computer?
So you're paying $1,200 for this, and that's a fair question, right? Because if you're paying so much money for this, you're like, well, I see an extra slot right here. What can I do with that? The answer is probably no, because this thing consumes a lot of power. Not a lot of power relative to video cards, but a lot of power relative to other hard drives. So this is really just a giant enclosure for this drive.
So the other thing people are going to think about this enclosure is, oh, it's a RAID enclosure. It's not a RAID enclosure.
No, all you get for your $1,200 is a single SSD that's 1.2 terabytes.
So that is not very many terabytes, considering it is. Oh, so yeah, that is what, $10 a gigabyte, right?
Well, no, it's over $1 per gigabyte.
$1 a gigabyte.
Yeah, which we tend to. I mean, when we're reviewing hard drives, we look for much cheaper cost per gigabyte than that. But this has advantages, which we'll get into.
So what are the advantages? Why pay more per gigabyte and put a giant steel box on your desk?
So the typical throughput speed of an SSD using the older SATA interface is around 600 megabytes per second, which is very fast. If you're upgrading from a regular old spinning hard drive, 600 megabytes per second is quite quick. However, this thing, Akitio says, can do data transfer rates of around 2,000 megabytes per second.
So 2 gigabytes a second.
Which we did some anecdotal testing, and we did get close to that in our testing of this. So that is, huge. That's orders of magnitude faster. If you really need that speed, but you have a computer that does not support the Intel 750 series SSD, which many don't, because you do need the PCIe NVMe interface, then this is an easier solution for you to get that speed externally, because it uses this, which is Thunderbolt 3, and many laptops now have Thunderbolt 3 connectors.
You got Thunderbolt 3 and you got, what is this, eSATA?
No, this is actually DisplayPort. So what they've done here is on the, we have some, takes a turn here. So we actually have a DisplayPort connector and a second Thunderbolt 3 on this thing.
Right.
Which means that if you don't have a dock, say, you can, and you have, maybe a Dell XPS 13, which supports charging over Thunderbolt 3, you can actually plug in the Thunderbolt 3 cable directly to this, and that can also then serve as your display and your second Thunderbolt.
So basically, they threw in a $49 USB-C to DisplayPort dongle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the drive itself costs about $1,000. So you're really paying about $250, $300 for this.
For the enclosure. Let's take some questions.
We've got someone who's building their own home media server, and they're wondering whether there's an SSD that's larger in capacity than this, or whether they're better off just getting a hard disk drive.
So, if you are building your own computer, whether it's a media center or whatever else, do not buy this. Do not buy this, because you can actually get the Intel, any drive. There are now several drives out there, in addition to the Intel one, that support this super fast interface.
But also, if you're doing a media server, you want, at this point, you're talking 8 terabytes or more of storage. What are your storage options at that level?
Okay, so in general, yeah, I would say don't buy this for your building computer. If you're buying one specifically for media consumption, do not go for maximum throughput, because you don't need it. What you really need, as Sasha said, is a lot of space. So, and you're looking at, one or two, a couple tens of cents per gigabyte rather than the over $1 gigabyte.
But then, so the question there is there any reason to even look at SSDs at all? Shouldn't they just be getting, some inexpensive, large capacity 2.5 millimeter hard drives?
I mean, I would say yes 2 years ago, but now SSD prices are falling, they're continuing to fall. If you know you're only going to use it, put it in the basement as a media storage server, then go for the absolute cheapest you can get. But otherwise, I would probably go for, well, actually, scratch that. Yeah, go for a spinning hard drive, because you'll get several terabytes for your same amount of money.
Now, if you're intending to do 4K video, and you're reading 4K video primarily because it's a media server, do you need to worry about throughput at all? Do you need to worry about the speed of the hard drive?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are the minimum specs there?
I don't think there's any minimum specs. It's really just a matter of how tolerant you are of lag time in video editing. Some people are more tolerant than others. This thing really is, there's no difference between, nearest makes no difference between putting a drive like this directly in your computer and connecting it via Thunderbolt 3, because Thunderbolt 3 can do almost the speed of this in your computer. So I would not hesitate to, well, if it was much cheaper, I would not hesitate to buy this instead of buying a whole new computer from scratch.
So the effect on video editing of having something like this, as opposed to a more normal SSD, is basically that when you're scrubbing through your 4K video, it scrubs more smoothly?
Right. Essentially, if you have the raw footage stored on this drive, it's going to be, it's going to be as fast as if you had installed this drive directly in your computer, which means it's not going to help with rendering, right? Because rendering is all the CPU. It's really just going to help with what Sasha said, which is accessing the raw files quicker.
Looks like we have some more questions.
Someone wants to know your general opinion on the Kaby Lake processors.
Kaby Lake processors, yeah. So that is the current generation of Intel processors. It is generally regarded as an incremental step above the old ones, kind of the tick of the TikTok processor upgrades. But there's no reason not to buy a Kaby Lake powered PC if you are wanting an upgrade now.
But I guess one of the questions is, like, if there's a Kaby Lake powered PC and the previous generation, that was Skylake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Skylake models are out there. They're considerably less expensive because they're looking a year old.
It depends on what you want to do with it. If you are video editing and you're going to get that extra oomph of power from a processor, then you should go with Kaby Lake. But for example, the good example of this is the MacBook Air, which we talked about on the show about a month or so ago. The MacBook Air has 2 generations of processor behind, which is ridiculous for that kind of money and selling a PC in 2017. However, if you're just using word processing, email, things like that, the generation really doesn't matter that much.
Okay, so now, did you guys take a look at, with this SSD, did you guys take a look at real-life application usage versus other SSDs specifically? Yeah,
so to measure, let's say you're not actually just using this for video editing, you're using it for storing a wide range of files. We actually have a proprietary test that we use. It's the PC Mark 7 secondary storage test, and it simulates moving a bunch of different type of files from your hard drive to your external hard drive and back again. And this thing actually isn't that much faster on that proprietary test than you would get from a regular USB 3.0 or other Thunderbolt drive. It's a proprietary score of about a 5,000, which is similar to many other SSDs we've seen recently. So you're really only buying this for the throughput, the insane throughput of video editing
Okay.
or whatever else.
Another question out there.
Couple questions about the enclosure. One, can you put more drives inside?
No.
So they actually, I mean, theoretically you could, but you're going to run up against the power limitations of because it's just using a PCIe power
And
bus.
I don't see what you'd plug it into.
Right. So they don't actually have. Yeah, they really only have one slot here. One.
This
yeah.
just isn't architected to put anything more in this box.
And furthermore, not only is it not architected to, there's actually a label here that says warranty void if any label screw is removed or broken. And there's a big label here over the connector to the second PCIe slot. So they're saying basically, this is what you get. You can take it out and admire it and look at it, but you can't actually change the.
I feel like cooling would be even better if you just have it like this.
Yeah, I mean, you don't actually,
know?
right? Yeah, if you really are spending this much money as almost like a toy type thing, then take it. Don't use this. Just throw this part away.
Let's get some more questions.
Does it make any noise when it's in use?
It does make almost inaudible amount of noise
fan.
because there's a fan. The reason for that is not because I mean, in the grand scheme of PC components, this uses almost no power, generates almost no heat. But when you're talking about SSDs, this uses much more power and generates a lot more heat than an average SSD. So there's a whisper quiet fan in here. You can actually look up the actual decibels on the Akitio website. I don't remember what that is, but you're not going to. I mean, if you have a huge desktop PC, you're not going to add any noise with this.
Yeah, and this is going to be used primarily with huge desktop PCs.
Well, no, actually, so that's a good point. This probably won't be used with big desktops because this is really for the best scenario for this is that you can't actually put this in a laptop because of the heat and power requirements. So it's really best for adding this to a Thunderbolt 3 powered laptop rather than a desktop.
Okay, and now actually, we made a good point when we were talking about that, which is PCs. And one of the big minuses for this is it is apparently, and I have no idea why they would do this, not Mac compatible.
Yeah, you cannot use this with a Mac computer, which will turn off a lot of creative professionals. And especially, it looks like it's.
Why
it's
would you even
design.
do that?
So it's not really the company's fault because you need, not only do you need the actual physical interface to support these NVMe drives, you also need the software that's required. And the Mac OS, I'm not sure what the acronym is. There's an acronym for it's essentially like an air traffic controller that directs traffic between the actual operating system and the drive. Mac OS does not support that. We'll see if that happens in High Sierra or later.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about High Sierra?
But for now, it doesn't support that. So even if you wanted to, even if you format this in exFAT, if you change this from NTFS to exFAT, which is
what
the
if you
Mac
format?
version,
Can you format an APFS?
We tried. We tried that. It doesn't. The actual formatting does not matter. We tried that out. It really is the support for this SSD.
Wow. Looks like we have another question out there.
What kind of SSD would you recommend for gaming?
Gaming. Gaming matters somewhat as far as data throughput. I would want, I mean, if you can afford it, go for this. But really, you should take a look at buying a gaming laptop or gaming desktop that supports the PCIe NVMe format.
But let's say someone out there is either building their own machine or they have an existing. Machine that they want to add an SSD to specifically in terms of the SSD itself.
I would go for as much SSD as you can afford. One that, one that's not necessarily a $1,000 one, but one that at least supports this NVMe format. Because ultimately, although that is a bit more expensive, a gaming desktop build, your primary expenses is going to be the graphics card and the CPU. So,
another question out there.
Another general PC question. What is considered to be needed for ultra graphics based on CPU clock speed? Is 4 gigahertz enough?
For ultra graphics? Well, I mean, it depends on the game. Lots of games support 4K now. Many others don't. I'm not sure the clock.
Yeah, isn't that mostly based on your graphics card? I think that's mostly based on your graphics card, not the clock speed.
Yeah, it's more important to go with a more powerful graphics card. I think the clock speed really matters on the graphics card for that. For that one.
Any more questions out there? Okay, great. So this Akitio Thunder3 PCIe SSD is $1,300 for only 1.2 terabytes of storage, but damn, it's fast. The review is up on PCMag.com. It is not an editor's choice because it's $1,300 for 1.2 terabytes of storage. So what is our editor's choice in the SSD realm right now?
We actually just reviewed the new Samsung, I'm blanking on the name, it's the new Samsung T5. There's some other thing in between there. That's our editor's choice. That is a very good drive. It is expensive, but not this expensive. So that's the drive that I would be going with if you're building a new computer.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Tom. This has been one cool thing in the PC Mag Labs. We will be back at 10 a.m. tomorrow with another cool thing to show you.